Hello and welcome to our second lesson of our Dart Basics module. We're going to talk about Dart and Flutter basics. So let's quickly jump in. We already have our void main function written. Now, first of all, I'm going to explain to you what are variables. Now, these are not going to be extremely detailed and extremely beginner lessons. So I'm just going to tell you the things that most of you already know. What is a variable? A variable is like a box where you store a piece of data, a name, a number, a list, could be anything. So it's better to just start giving you examples. Now, first example is var name equals Alex, and don't forget the semicolon. There we go. So in this example, we are declaring a new string in a variable, which is a box, which has the name of that box is name. Now, there are other ways to declare variables. You can also explicitly declare variables in Dart with their data types. Int age equals 30. Now, this variable is called age, and this has the number 30 in it. Now, you can also declare other variables with other data types. For example, a boolean. Bool is student equals true. This means that this is a boolean. It can only have one or two values. It can only have one or the other value, either true or false. In this case, it is true. Let's print all these values. And run. As we can see, we now see the values Alex, which is a string, 30, which is a number, and true, which is a boolean. Now, sometimes we can add the words final and const to these variables, and that changes these variables. For example, let's add final to our age. Now, when we use final, this means that the value of this variable doesn't change after being assigned. We can also use const. Const means that it is a compile time constant, meaning that its value will not be changed even when it is being compiled. So let's continue with functions. Now let's move on to functions. So let's delete this code, but keep the main, and let's create a new function. Go to the top and type string, which is the return value, greet, opening and closing brackets. Now this function takes another argument with string name, and let's complete the syntax by opening and closing the brackets. Now, what essentially a function does is it takes some value, manipulates it in some way, and then returns it to you. That is essentially what a function does in almost all of programming. So this time, this is going to return a greeting with the name that we give it to. So let's do that. Return hello name semicolon. Now let's run this function inside of our main function, because we know that this function cannot run on its own. It must be called inside the main function. That is what it's called, calling a function. Once you declare a function like we did it up here, we must call it by giving it a proper value. So let's do that. So we call the function greet and we give it the value David. And now we run it. We don't see anything in the screen. That is because our function is just returning the value hello name, but we're not printing it actually. So let's print it. But before that, let's store the value in another variable. Now, what happens is that this function takes the value David, returns it as a greeting, and that is being saved in a variable by the name of name. Now, let's print this variable. And let's run it this time. And there we see, hello David is now being returned. Now, let's give you another example of functions with two numbers. So let's quickly create a new function. This time you don't have to follow it. I'm just going to type it and you can write it down later at the end. So this function is called an add function and it takes in two integers, a and b, and then it returns these two by adding them. So let's print this one. So what we do now is we call the function add. We give it two numbers as arguments, 5 and 7. And the returning value is being stored in the variable sum, which is of type int. And here we are printing sum. So let's run it again and we see 12, which is correct. Finally, some functions do not have any return types. So I would like to show you another example very quickly. Now this function is called say goodbye. As you can see, it has nothing. It does not take any arguments and it also does not return anything. So we call it a void. Let's see what happens when we run it. Now we see goodbye, but the values are not stored in any place because it is a void function. It just does something but does not return a value. So that was it. And in the next lesson, we're going to talk about logic and control flow. So stay tuned and see you in the next lesson.